Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the Publishing Next team for making this happen. Absolutely fantastic. So just what I'm going to do is very quickly introduce the panelists, and uh, after the introductions, I'll just take literally a minute to set up the conversation. Because as we have seen in the morning, the topic we're about to discuss is clearly a topic which is dear to the hearts of a lot of people, and which makes for sort of a pretty animated conversation. But I think I'm just going to keep the conversation a little tight because I've been in this situation a few times in different distribution conferences, and it just becomes messy. So I'll just start off with introducing the panel. I'll start with Veti. So Veti will sort of start the session off. Veti is the founder CEO of India Plaza. It's a brand I think all of us are well familiar with. So obviously they had the vision many years back when nobody thought about e-commerce to really start selling books online, and they continue to be sort of one of the prominent booksellers online. Sundar. So Sundar is, I think, I mean, I was just telling him yesterday that I keep going to his stores and have the highest respect for. So Sundar is the founder CEO of Jess Books, or Strata. Strata is the company name, and so they have clearly shown that I think till Jess Books started, everybody used to say it was very easy to say libraries are dead, libraries don't work, business doesn't work. Libraries can't scale and so on, and they've really shown how libraries are probably a better price value equation for the customer, and there is a way to scale a library chain. So I'm sure he'll have much to say about that. Then we have Rahul from Penguin. Rahul looks after, I think, a bunch of functions at Penguin, including sales, digital products, and sort of a bunch of functions at he's general manager at Penguin India. Then we have Vikrant on my left from Nielsen. Nielsen, obviously, in the last couple of years, Vikrant has spearheaded, I think, absolutely fantastic and much needed initiative to really bring information to this industry. This is an industry which is, funnily enough, completely information starved. 4 years back, when I started sort of doing something in publishing, it was just bizarre. Nobody knew what was happening. Nobody knew who was selling what books, what children's books were selling, and so on. So obviously, these guys have done a fantastic initiative in the last couple of years and covered a lot of ground. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Veti to sort of kick off this conversation. The topic is, I think there's been a little bit of a printing mix-up. The topic is supply side woes from a bookseller's perspective, and that bookseller could in some sense be the publisher from Rahul's perspective. It could be the retailer from Veti's perspective, and from Sundar's perspective also as a retailer. And I hate to say this, but I'm probably going to end up being the anchoring the role of the distributor. So please don't beat me up. But I'm going to hand over to Veti to get started.
Can all of you hear me there? It's okay now? Okay, first, thank you for making this happen. I think it's absolutely wonderful to be here. So I'm not necessarily going to speak from a retailer or online retailer. I think there are supply side issues right through from the publisher to the consumer. And there are many problems. Obviously, it's way beyond this session to discuss, but I'm going to just bring probably one or two of them up front. I think the biggest change that has happened over the last 13 years since I've been selling books online is that there is a clearly dramatic shift that has happened from a consumer point of view, accelerated significantly over the last 3-4 years. And I think the problem is everybody else, which is largely the publisher, mostly the publisher, not so much as the distributor, continue to ignore the change. So I think there is a distribution mechanism, a supply chain model that was built long time back, once upon a time, long ago, and I think they just continue with it. And customers have moved on, right? Business has moved on, technology has changed. What publishers are trying to do is to continue to take the new change, understand that is happening, behave like an ostrich, ignore it, and try and see if they can force fit into the old model and make it work. And it will not work. And thereby, everybody in the chain, especially people outside the publisher, till of course the consumer, are struggling. And I think they all have a different set of problems, some of them solvable, some of them difficult to deal with, but can be done. But I think the fundamental change is being ignored, and till it is fully embraced. I'm not saying they're completely ignoring. I think they're not fully embracing it. That the key word here is fully. We will continue to have these challenges. If you look at things, how things have changed worldwide, I mean, if you look at the Western world, primarily America, UK, and other places, I think the change there also, I think people, mostly publishers, have certainly been caught up like the deer in the headlight story. But I think they've been able to move on much faster. Here it's not happening so fast. And I think if I had to pull up one point on the table that I think we need to discuss is there is a change. It can't be ignored too long. And I think you have to rebuild a distribution model that takes care of the new realities, or what they call the new normal. Until that happens, I don't think we're going to make much progress.
So if I may just ask, what do you think, I think I heard the question somewhere in the audience.
What is the change?
You have referred to a change,
right,
that the publishers, can I just articulate the question? You have referred to a change that the publishers need to make because the world has changed. So what are, let's say, the 2 or 3 things that the publishers need to change about the way they are working?
Okay, so if you look at, let's say, the distribution model for books, let's say 15, 20 years back, there was an author who used to write books, he or she wrote books, and then it went to a publisher, and then the book got published, and then it would reach to a consumer who had little or no choice but to buy the book from a physical store. So the primary purpose of the distribution model at that time was to physically reach the book from point A to point B through a multi-layered system. I think all those layers, most of those layers today are irrelevant. There is no value add, and they continue to exist. And as long as they exist, there is a problem. To me, that's the big problem that's being ignored. The layers exist, they have no value, they don't add value, there is little or no knowledge in the layers, but they continue to exist. And every single system that is coming up is trying to make sure that the models exist. I mean, that's a problem for me.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's
all.
Okay, good. Thank you. So, please.
I'll just take a minute to explain what we do as a library chain. I think it's kind of relevant for the larger discussion. We would like to believe that we are the new animal in this space, and largely not known probably outside of Bangalore, but we have our plans of how we would want to contribute to whatever is happening within the area of books. We at Just Books, we are a chain of libraries. We're now about 60 libraries overall, with 40 what we call as normal main format libraries, and about 20 of them as extensions to our main format libraries. We do the same basic stuff that neighborhood libraries have always been doing for the last 20-30 years. So they get members to subscribe. When they get residents in and around the library to take membership on subscription basis, take books home, return it, read it, return it back, and move on. What we have done to this space is we have enabled people to set up libraries in the neighborhoods that they live. Of the libraries that I mentioned, 60 of them, about 95% of them are franchise-owned and franchise-operated. Our typical experience has been that somebody becomes a member of the library as an experiment, uses the facility for a few months, and comes and tells us that I've always wanted to set up a library at some point of time in my life. Will you enable me do that in a neighborhood that's about 3 or 5 kilometers away from the current one? We work the details and get them to set up the second library. And the member of the second library comes and tells us, I always wanted to do a library at some point of time in my life, and then it moves on another 5 kilometers from there. So we've now there at about 10 cities, spread out largely in this model of members turned business owners running a library for the neighborhood that they live in. And what we have done is given a certain operations bandwidth that Vaidi was talking about, that we tell people that once you're a member at one place, you are a member at all our libraries, you get access to all the books in all the libraries. You could ask for those books to be brought here to your library, or you could visit any of the libraries and use those facilities. You could get a book issued in Bangalore, take it with you, return it in Pune, take a replacement book from Pune, take it back to Bangalore and move on. We just, from as a back-end company who's started this, we bring the required logistics and operations bandwidth. We bring the required technology support that is required to do this, and we enable franchise owners to do what they can do in running their individual businesses. Right? Now, the context of this discussion, my larger request to a lot of people here who are significantly more experienced in the business than I am, I've just been doing this for 3-4 years now, is that it may be a great opportunity for publishers and others in the industry to recognize libraries as a possible opportunity to engage with readers and increase reading. We do come across as people who have put a lot of books on the shelves, and we do come across as people who are just waiting for people to come and take the books, read it and return it back. But the underlying opportunity is larger than just that. If a publisher wishes to use this as a promotional medium to engage with readers, we've acquired a reasonable set of readers over a period of time in the last 3 or 4 years. We're kind of hoping that the numbers that we get to in the near future will be even more exciting for publishers to engage with. And that's a sizable filtered reader audience that is available. I haven't seen any publisher coming and talking to me so far about saying, can I use your readers or your vehicle as a means of promoting my title? I think people largely look at it as either a redundant trade opportunity. I mean, I could have sold so many books more if these guys didn't exist kind of look, or that we are viewed as people who are just there but won't really serve any specific purpose apart from recycling some books in and around existing member base. My request in this session would be to step back and look at us or any other entity that has acquired a certain base of readers as a potential opportunity to engage with them and promote your titles. Even if a marketing spend of certain percentage comes through us, and if we work with the publishers to create some means of giving certain exposure to our readers, I think readers all the time keep looking for newer titles and means of knowing what is happening within the book trade. We now created a magazine, in-house magazine, we call it Books and More. We felt that there is a need to have a vehicle that engages with people. It just talks about books and happenings in the trade and all that. So my one primary concern is that there is a newer animal that is not even getting recognized in the larger space, and there may be a case for people to just step back and say, do I have an answer, do I have an exact value proposition to go and offer to the publisher saying, this is what you should do with me and this is how you will benefit? Probably not. We are still at the details of our own operations and trying to get our business to stabilize and do a few things, but we are reasonably confident that at some point of time we will be able to evolve if there are takers for it and if somebody is willing to engage with our readers through us. That's one. The second point, if I have the time, that I would like to communicate is that our limited experience in running this whole business, trying to engage with readers, is that there is probably a case to look at marketing very differently within the book trade. I'm not yet an expert in articulating solutions, but one of the strange things that we realize is that there is an excellent warmth in running a library in the neighborhood. I've always felt that when you open a library, there are this first set of 50, 100 guys who will come in and profusely thank you for setting up a library that was never existing for so long and giving the experience that they think they deserve. I don't think they do that with the supermarket or a beauty parlor that is open next door. Right? So I think we're very happy that they come and say, do that to us. But it kind of stops there. The next level for us is to try and say what else is happening outside in the ecosystem that is making these people come to Just Books and ask Just Books or any library or any bookstore to say, is this available for me to access through your system? Today, that responsibility in my limited assessment of the chain is that it's somewhere there and not there. It's hanging between right from writers to publishers to distributors to retailers to some of us as libraries. We aren't really sure who's promoting reading and who's promoting titles. Of course, there may be some specific titles getting promoted, but who really is engaging in promoting reading as an experience? I'm not very sure about it. Should it be libraries, should it be retailers, or should it be somebody else up in the chain? No, I don't know, but that's a larger question for people to debate. The third concern, which I think Vaidhi just articulated, is on distribution. I do think that it suddenly looks too complicated for somebody who's, if someone has not seen book trade from very close and if just come from outside wanting to set up some infrastructure, I think there are lots of things that you can ask as questions on why do it this way, and aren't there better ways of doing it? And it just feels as though there is a way to do things here, and that's how it needs to be done. But I'm sure there are lots of things that can be improved within the whole distribution chain of setting up a place. So those are just some of the points that I mentioned. But I would again like to add the disclaimer here that we are a library chain, so a lot of what we say is from our experience of what we have done in the last couple of years. Can't really claim expertise in the book trade as yet.
Okay. Before I hand it to Rahul, I'm going to go back to the first point that Sundar made. And I would like to throw that question to the many publishers in the room, including Rahul from obviously with his Penguin background, is how do publishers see a library chain or a library? Is there engagement? Is that competition to trade sales? Love to get sort of any thoughts from the publishers in the room. Rahul, you could probably
see
some thoughts and could open it to them.
libraries are most welcome, and we see them as an opportunity. They are a must. And we mostly crib at that, in most of the part of the country, the libraries don't exist. That culture doesn't exist. That seriously affects the overall business in the long run. But one thing I want to clarify, publishers are not ostriches. And
Publishers not?
ostriches.
Ostriches.
So we are witnessing all the changes which are happening. But the thing is that, the changes are happening rapidly. It's a continuous thing. So there is not one solution, okay, this is the problem, we fixed it. Continuously there is the change, and I think with Penguin we have been pretty responsive to this. So a couple of years back we took a huge step and completely redefined our distribution system, and we say we simplified it, and we did with the size of the business that we run and all the great books that we import and publish and sell in this market. So there is one distribution in one region in the country. And so that problem of saying that who will take this onus to keep the stock of this Lal Ded's poetry, which we published, Kashmiri poet, which, obviously all the distributors saying, what are you guys publishing? But we know, there are people who want that kind of books. So we completely believe that we publish, there is a commercial part of it, of our publishing, which focuses on the kind of Chetan Bhagat. Somebody very rightly said, this is the only man who has expanded the pie for the publishers. So we know there is a market. We are publishing for that. Our metro reads are pretty popular. And then there is, for the price point, as so we sell 1,000 rupees, 800 rupees, 900 rupees book. At the same time, we also sell 100 rupees books. So there is a market. We know it. We are reaching out there. The digital and the technology-based part of distribution is already settled. Maybe, ebooks, Flipkart has not started selling. Maybe India Plaza is also going to start selling it very soon. So whenever it begins, we are there. We are equipped fully, geared up to launch as soon as, somebody starts selling it. For various platforms, whether it is through apps, we are there, completely ready with that. Into the physical book sales will exist in the years to come. Distributors will exist. Flipkarts and Amazons of the world will exist. So it's going to be coexist. So we look at libraries will also exist. So we look at each of these segments separately, and we know we are going to sell there. Somebody just mentioned that supermarkets. So we have things set up there. We know Reliance is going to sell certain type of books. They will need to experiment. They tried a few years ago, if you remember, in Big Bazaars, there was a section called Depot. It was a disaster for them. It bombed. So they are pretty skeptical about it now. So we have been in touch. We know we are doing some business with them, but it also takes their confidence to boost up, to see that, okay, these books are selling from here. And so that is the part of the distribution. There was a lot of talk about distribution, but I think this is how we need to look at it. The second part was that somebody said that into the parts of the country that the books are not reaching. So again, to address that, personally what we have done, I personally have been looking after into this area, and there was a gentleman from Dhanbad here. So he said that, distributors' conditions are very strange. We have personally handpicked few people from the various, remote places, like somebody from Hisar, somebody from Kashmir, where there are no booksellers, but there are somebody from the Northeast. Where the market is there, we know small communities are there. They are interested in certain kind of books. There are schools, they need to look at books, but no bookshops. So when I find a small entrepreneur who is going and selling into the school, has some credibility, whenever I travel, we pick such people. We tell them, okay, you don't need to worry on the risks or the conditions. I'm giving you these books, start selling them. And the results have been phenomenal. So, we trust that, if we want to grow readership, we need the books to be available. If the book is there, then only the readership will go up. And the kind of books, not only the school books, the kind of books that Puffin is publishing and other children imprints of Penguin or any other publisher selling, if the book is there, then only the whole thing will start. So we are taking this initiative, we are trusting people. Some of them just don't give the money, I never see them again. But that's fine. But there are many who are coming back with larger orders and they're growing their business. After us, a lot of other publishers are trusting the same guy. So one of them who works in Hisar especially, 3 years ago we began with him. He did certain turnover. All other big publishers started account with them. And now most of the time when I call him, he is holidaying in Bangkok. So it has gone to that level. So we know a lot of positive things are happening. And that's how it is. That's how we look at it. And that's what we are doing. So and it's going pretty strong. I am very happy the way publishing is going overall. That's what yeah.
All right, that's actually a fantastic note to sort of kill the whole topic of woes of the bookseller. And thanks to Rahul for that. But I mean, I'm just going to shoot that question back to some of the other publishers in the room, because I mean, there's probably a little bit of a strength of the Penguin network that's coming into play into Rahul's experience. But what are the challenges some of the other publishers face, and potentially the mid-sized or smaller publishers face? Maybe a little different from yes.
My name is Frederick Norona, and I'm representing Goa 1556, which is a very tiny alternative publisher based in Goa. We have 45 books to our title. 45 books to our title, almost no capital and things like that. We work in collaboration with bookshops. We do every trick in the book to make our books viable.
Yeah.
Mr. Venkateswaran threw a red flag at a raging bull, because my experience with the online book sales is disastrous. I mean, Amazon is raping us left, right, and center. I cannot use stronger language, because 55% commission, one book being ordered at a time. Okay. If the books go there and it's slightly damaged, it's come back at your cost, which is a huge loss. Their accounts never tally with your accounts. And Flipkart is a bit worse, mind you. So at the end of the year, they'll send back all your stock so that they show their stock low. And they have 45% commission. They'll order a huge number of books, which is fine, which works for us, but the books come back at the end of their financial year. And apart from that, I think Leonard did analysis of their terms where they go in for e-books with you, which is totally disastrous in that sense. They're talking about they doing the books for you for free, quote unquote. And once you do some books, you have to do all your books with them. And if you remove your books from their list, then you pay them for it, because they are not willing to accept your e-book versions because of quality of service and other issues. So, it's very well argued. But finally, at the end of the day, you're getting badly squeezed. 45% commission again there. And all your e-books will be sold to third parties through them. So, when I was talking to them, I said, try to understand, this is an ecosystem. You want to push us out of the business, you can. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a dinosaur either. I don't think that we are going to remain unchanged. I don't want to be a rent seeker. In fact, I'm looking at my full work as some kind of collaboration, some kind of cooperative with the authors. Because publishers need to change our role.
Can I just give Veti the chance to respond to this?
Fine.
It's a great point.
Yeah, publishers need to change their role. But I'm saying the way the online outlets are going,
yeah.
Amazon has pushed bookshop after bookshop out of business in America. So much so that people in protest are setting up bookshops.
So I'm just going to stop you here, because your point is absolutely valid. Veti?
So first of all, I disagree with him when he says that he couldn't have used stronger language. He could have said India Plaza is raping us.
Yeah.
So he could have certainly
Which
used...
I'm sure you are not.
Yes. So therefore, he could have used stronger language. Therefore, I'm disagreeing with that. Yeah. Good. Yeah. When I made a point about the fact that there is a change that is happening and it is not being embraced fully, it wasn't keeping one publisher in mind. Certainly not large people like Penguin, and not certainly large, smaller people like you. I think overall, the point that I was trying to make is there is a set of books that is being written by authors, and given the fact that technology has made such sweeping changes over the last several years, I think we all owe it to ourselves to reach that book in the fastest and the cheapest manner to the consumer, right? And that I think is not happening. And it is not happening because everybody has a different system, and this is not about books being returned and commissioned. I think there is an overall problem which can't be solved as long as each of us are trying to do separate. And I'm trying to solve my problem, he's trying to solve his problem, but I think the war of building readership, building reading habits will be solved only by making sure more people read books faster and quickly at a cheaper rate, and that's not happening. Irrespective of any which way we spin it, the fact of the matter is he's got a set of problems, he's got a different set of problems, I got a different set of problems, but the guy who wants to read the book is not able to get it. So I don't think that's changed.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I can quite sort of agree with that. In Amar Chitrikatha, so we were configured to sort of work on trade sales, and we were running a store, amarchitrikatha.com, and we were doing fantastic business through India Plaza and later through Flipkart also. But fact is, we were not completely configured to really service the India Plaza customer. Even now, and I can just say till about 7-8 months back, till 7-8 months back, our turnaround times on sort of any of the e-commerce deliveries were probably 3 times what the e-commerce
Customer wanted,
and the brand wanted to deliver. So, and I don't know, I mean, what's the experience, or have the other sort of mid-sized publishers been able to sort of move shape, able to sort of service these requirements of e-commerce a little better? The other challenge that the gentleman...
Explain on that. Why would that happen? You have goods in the inventory.
Well, yes, but we didn't have sort of good technology systems. The technology backend wasn't there properly. The goods used to be sitting, sort of the bulk used to be in, I mean, okay, this is too much of a sort of detail, but the bulk goods used to be sitting in one warehouse, which was tech enabled. But from where you would ship for quick orders, that wasn't fully tech enabled. There wasn't a dedicated team really doing it in a high quality manner. So, just these small operational challenges. And I think that those are plaguing many of the publishers. You're not adequately staffed. These are not publishers typically are not really big teams. You don't have specialized departments looking at e-commerce and so on. So that's also
right.
part of the problem.
Actually, just to add to what you were saying, the problem that we faced, and we worked on it together, is that we had a set of customers who had paid money to read the books. They had the books, and both were in 2 different places. I mean, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'd just like to jump in here. And one of the challenges that that an online store faces in India today is that publishers don't give metadata, publishers don't create metadata. And awareness about metadata is hardly there.
Right.
And this, I think, would have to be attacked first if we want to go into the online sales, if publishers want to migrate into online selling. And there's not enough information about metadata in India today, and no one's really talking about it except for our friend here. But coming back to the challenges that small publishers face in India as regards retail, companies like mine, which is in a niche, Mappin has been in niche publishing. We do only illustrated books in art and culture, so our list is very small. We are now getting squeezed out from all sides because A, the market has shrunk for illustrated books. Also, the changes in multi-format retail has put a lot of pressure. Last 2 years with Odyssey going down, Landmark refusing to pay, it created a big hole in our balance sheets. And there is no forum, like the gentleman earlier was saying, people who are not paying, we can't pay our authors if we don't get money back from retailers. And this is a common problem. It's not just us. I mean, you talk to any publisher and this is like happening across board. No one wants to talk about it. You ask them, no one wants to go on record. You try to do a story about it, no one will talk. And I find that baffling that the industry does not want to have a voice. The trade bodies in the country that represent publishers don't do anything, and we are not putting enough pressure on them to do something. And they don't come together. There are 3 different trade bodies, depending on which way you want to go. They don't represent the industry, so there's no way we can standardize things unless there is a real coming together of all segments within the industry.
Anybody else on the publishing side? Publishing side or yeah.
Hi, I'm Pratik. I'm from Manta Ray Comics. I think we're the smallest publisher in this gathering. I've been trying to grapple with the question.
Sorry, I didn't get. You're the smallest publisher in
this entire
in this room.
in this entire forum, I think. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
They have one brilliant title.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Savini is smaller. She's got 0 books, but she's got 3 coming out in October or something.
Okay.
So, I've been trying to grapple with this. We do comic books and graphic novels. India Plaza has stocked our books, I think, but through Westland, I think, not directly. Flipkart stocked our books. We did one book, and I mean, for some fluke or some, I mean, I know the book was fairly well received. I think a lot of people know about us. I think what I'm trying to figure out is we figured that the bookstores won't work. I mean, bookstores are being killed left, right, and center. Landmark is supposedly moving, cutting down bookshelf space, and they're doing massive sales, and you're selling 800 rupee worth graphic novels for like $50. Okay, so basically you're cutting down entire categories. Okay, so that's one thing that's happening. And distributors don't work, which everybody's talking about. And you've got online stores like India Plaza and Flipkart. Now, let's say I put my book on Flipkart or India Plaza, and everything else. I mean, the book is not seen. I mean, Flipkart has, let's say, a category for graphic novels. And when we brought out the first book, they did some kind of promotion for it. And but I think most of the 99% of the marketing or the pushing that you do for a book is done by yourself. It's done by the author, by the creator, by using social media, friends networks, and whatever PR you do in Outlook magazine or Hindu or wherever. And you mentioned, okay, it's available in Flipkart. Now the question is, why would I give, as a small publisher, 45% of my margin to an online retailer to ship my books? Because I'm doing the marketing and somebody's going to come to your site and search and say, okay, is Hush available here? Okay, then I'll buy it from you. But I might as well push them to my site on an online store for myself and ship the books myself.
Please do. Why don't you guys do it? So I'll tell you.
No.
You don't want to invest. That's why.
Sorry?
You don't want to invest. How many small publishers have e-com enabled websites today? They don't want to invest.
But it doesn't require a lot of investment.
Whatever little investment. They don't
Okay.
want to make
Okay,
whatever
let's really see the other side of the thing too. I mean, we are like in the middle. So I'm from Poti.com. We're a self-publishing platform, and we sort of sell our books through India Plaza, Flipkart on behalf of our authors. And we have our own working e-commerce sites. But there are some realities of the market that we have to understand. If I give the link of Poti.com to 1,000 customers, and if I give the link of India Plaza or Flipkart.com to 1,000 customers, the conversion rates are much higher on Flipkart.com or IndiaPlaza.com simply because there is that positioning. So even that positioning they are bringing to the table, that we have to accept. Secondly, I'm not justifying higher margins, but there are some real challenges. You can't just put up an e-commerce shop and expect that all the problems will be solved. It doesn't get solved. Logistics in India is a huge issue. As in, we ship our own books, and our production and our customer service doesn't generate any customer service questions, but the logistics generates so many of them that we sort of have to have dedicated staff all day for that. Logistic costs are just insanely high. So these are the problems that even they are facing. It's like that 45%, if you try to ship it yourself, if you want a reliable supplier, it just, the money just goes away. It's not there anywhere. I mean, they eat it all up. So there are issues on both sides of the table. I mean, we are struggling with that. We also can't afford 60%, 70% margins, but yeah, there are issues for them to deal with.
Okay, I'm just going to request, I'm going to ask Vikrant to go through, because he's going to address a very important piece of this puzzle, which unfortunately is sort of often sort of brushed under the carpet. Who needs information, right? I mean, we all know where the market is, we know what to make, we know how to sell it, and you know, it's all well, it's not all good. So over to you.
Yeah. So Ashit rightly mentioned, I mean, when we started this project in India, whomsoever we talked, the publisher, they say, no, I know everything. I know about the market. I know how many copies I'm selling in the market. Why do I need market intelligence? Why should I share the data of mine from the retailer side of it? Why should I make it the market transparent? Then I said, fine, then it means you are selling all your books as a bestseller. Then it started scratching its head, and he said, no, I'm selling few books as a bestseller, and some are low sellers, some are not selling well. So I said, but you are investing a lot in that book. That's how. It means you are putting your costs for the editorial, you are printing the books, and out of whether it book sells or not, it's a sale of one copy, but the investment remains the same. It means the fixed investment would be there. So what you're going to do after that? So he says, I'm just, because a lot of titles are selling in, I'm just surviving with that. I said, then why don't you manage your titles which are not selling in well? Why don't you manage those titles so that it becomes over the time of, as a low selling titles, it becomes a good selling titles. Rather it not appear the bestseller, but at least you'll make a cost out of that. So I prepared some slide in which will tell you what is the market intelligence is all about and why we need that market intelligence.
Just to do a show of hands, how many people think that there is a need for data? Really? I don't believe you guys.
Yeah?
I think you guys are bluffing. Okay.
Okay. So this ease my lot of things.
That's good for his business.
Yeah, and ease a lot of things because I don't see that many hands often.
Yeah.
See, that's the question comes in.
They've launched a subsidiary non-profit.
So you don't want to pay, but you want to see the data coming in your system, and then you don't value out of that. And you say, whether data is good or bad, you don't have a service out of that. And you are talking about the margins overall, where you struggle about 45%, 35%. So better pay something and get a value out of that. What is market intelligence is all about is spotting the relevant information, the relevant which is basically relevant for the industry, whether it's a title or the book or whatsoever it is. Gather the information without any bias. So third party like a Nielsen can make that difference. Probably retailers might not give you the right information, but third party can have and can make it such a way so that retailer doesn't get exposed while sharing the data back to the publisher or anybody in the industry. And analyzing it in the right manner so that you understand what is there in the data. Otherwise, if you leave with the data, you won't be able to make it out head and tail of that. Some of the examples very quickly to look at is the real market understanding, market indicators, something like pricing, evolving channels, evolving categories, market distribution. I've been hearing a lot about distribution, how to manage your distribution, competitive analysis, because I know what I'm selling in, but I don't know what others are selling in. I always believe in gut feel. Why don't you believe in real figures? What is there in the book market share? So how the book market is working in, whether the book market is growing, is not growing, how the performance was there this year versus the last year. So it's YOY analysis there. You can also see whether the genre is working well or not. So I have been hearing a lot about children. So you can see whether children, and within that subset of children, is working well. So that I can make my policies, I can make my strategic decision based on that. ASPs, very important factor for everybody. All the publishers need to know what is ASP is running in. Because my print run or my MRP says 150. Whether I sell book at 150 or I sell it at 100 rupees last price in the market. And whether the customer is paying that. Market distribution, very much important tool for any publisher, whether I have the geographical reach, whether my product is widely distributed in the market or it's been queued. So probably I've been harping upon why I'm not selling well in the market, but it's because of the distribution is not being managed properly. Yeah. And then online versus physical. I mean, so everybody talks about how the online versus or what is the physical. So that's another channel, evolving channel. Ebooks, how the ebooks is going to happen in India. We talk about a lot of ebooks. Whether it's going to hit India, whether it's going to cannibalize the physical books, nobody knows. So data can tell you that because we are already doing something in UK and US market. You can always compare the Bookscan India versus Bookscan UK, how that market is evolving in. If you want to export some books, that data is also available. Apart from that, competition analysis, how my publisher is doing it, what my competition is doing it, what price their books are selling in, what share I'm holding in the market, whether my share is growing and I'm degrowing in the market, all those stuff comes from that. Whether my new launch is performing well or my competitor is doing well, so all those stuff. I'm just getting some very quicker data out here, spotting unusual title. Why I'm saying so, because some of the titles which we think might not work or might work, not work, because the buzz is not around the market. Look at the title of Breaking Nation. Yeah, it has sold from my data. I'm covering a limited market, but it has sold from that coverage more than 21,000 copies. Yeah.
Is that a surprise for people?
Yeah.
It's a hot bag. I'm sure it will sell a lot more if it's paperback as well.
Yeah.
This is only India, right?
It's only India, and it's only from the limited panel I'm talking about. And my panel covers about 35 to 40% of the market. If you're separated by 0.4, you'll get to know what is selling in. That's what all spotting very early, these kind of titles. Yeah. The bestseller. Can I know what is the bestseller would be in 2012 of fiction? Come on. Yeah, I can hear someone saying Chetan Bhagat. It's version 2020. Yeah. In 2012, this many copies have been sold. I'm not accounting 2011 figures. It's just 2012 figures. Non-fiction, The Magic. Look at the number of quantities, and you should also mention the value it has generated, the business it has generated. The volume is not that high, but it is equivalent to the Chetan Bhagat. Let's see some figure for the children, Wimpy Kids, and you have the volume value. So these are the examples I wanted to quote it out here. When you start reading out the data, you'll come to know what is selling in, what is not selling in, and let's do some correction therein. Yeah, might be in the distribution, might be in the pricing, and some of the other stuff. This is what Nielsen does it for the book market precisely, and we do it in all the globe. We are the ASME agency. We collect the data, metadata. We make it metadata such in such a format so that it can be used by online retailers, it can be used by the libraries, or it can be used for the brick and mortars. And in return, what publisher would get it is a clean data which they can use it in their own system. Yeah. And the book scan is already therein. That's how we cover the entire supply chain. And I'm now seeing so many faces who can tell me what is your expectation as a publisher, what you need from the data, what exactly you see when the data comes in front of you. Anyone? When you see the data as a publisher, what do you see it in the data?
Book scan data.
Any data. I mean, it's a book scan or any market intelligence tool data. You always try to see first thing is how much copies you have sold, the one book you are looking for. And then next question comes in, is it enough? Is it the benchmark I want to set it up? Or I want to do something more of that book? How my competition has done it? Because you might be done for some particular genre, might be children. How my competition has done it in that particular, maybe I have done little less than what they have done it. So there are certain benefits. So I'm saying sales and marketing, how many we have sold, to make action plan for that. Whether my promotions have worked well. The promotion I have done it in the market as a publisher, it has done well or it has not. Take a corrective action based on that. What prices are working? I'm putting a 250, whether the book is selling at 250, it is selling at 150, or what my competition is doing it. Something on a supply chain, whether I'm keeping a right stock, I am over-printing the book, or I'm not reprinting the book which is already selling well in the market. So all those managing of the supply chain is very important. And last piece is strategic. Remember that genre is not working. You got to shift to the new genre. Channel is not working in, or some new channel is evolving. You got to attack your book in that market. You have to place your book based on that. If you slow down in ebook, you might lose out the market share over the period of time. If you're not keeping your book well in the online space, again, you might lose out the sales there. You don't have to blame someone, but it is you who can manage the supply chain. Some of the benefits retailer would get, because I can see some of the retailers are also sitting out here. They can manage the supply chain. Because every retailer says, I know which book to order, but do they know entire series of the book? So what they need to do is see which is selling well, and then you manage the supply chain. Because we're talking about brick and mortar, who's plays a lot of rental in the market. So better place those books which is selling very well in the market. Spotting unusual title, I've shown Brick and Nation. If that is selling well, why don't you stock it? Why don't you do some promotion and do some selling out of that? Reduce your return and manage and keep monitoring your market share. So probably I have Ishi out there who's India Plaza, so you might want to capture their market share, whether they are doing well with the Flipkart or whatsoever it is. So it can also happen through that. And this is some books which I have placed out here. This is for the media, because I see some media out here. So media would be, when I started launch this project, media says, it's always gut feel, these are bestseller chart. Now, the real bestseller charts are available in the market. Use that, keep writing about what is happening in the industry, and use the data out of that. So this was the wall of fame we built up from the book scan data. So the last slide I have, you might laugh on that. You might choose either this or he does that.
But this is only English language publishing.
No. What I say it is two folds of that is if my retailer sells the book of regional language, I will track it. But the regional language book should have the valid ISBN number. If it doesn't contain the valid ISBN number, I can't track it. Yeah. And it should also collect the metadata because I'm responsible for collecting for the metadata as well in the market.
So you don't have a picture of how regional languages or Indian languages are doing?
It can be built up. Yeah, it can be easily built up because the metadata I'm collecting it tells me that whether it's an English or any other language. Plus you have the ISBN number, the unique identifier, so you can easily identify that book.
How do you collect this data?
We collect the data from the retailer like India Plaza. They every week they send out their sales figure. We measure from Sunday to Saturday, and Monday, Tuesday we do a collection. So we don't go physically to these shops. They have the FTP account. Through that they submit the data to my UK production team, because all the data which is being produced production is happened at the UK. Yeah. So this is how we do a data collection.
So what's in it for them to share the data?
It is to manage the supply chain simply.
I also have a thing to say for that thing. Let him complete. I'll also come back. It has done something.
No, why don't you go
strange.
ahead now?
Yeah, please.
No, what Nielsen is doing, because of that, a lot of streamlining is happening. So no shooting in the dark is happening anymore. So the bestsellers are becoming bigger. Because as soon as I know the Breakout Nation is selling 10,000 copies a week, I immediately push the print button, and pre-print another 10. Same in many cases. But there are titles which I know are not going to sell that much. They will never show up in top 250 titles. And because of the corporate chains and big ORC store and per square inch cost and revenues, all that junk, the focus is on keeping the books that sell. So the concept of having a long backlist is just gone. So everybody is running behind 250, top 250. But a major part of the sales used to come from the backlist, which is still there, but slightly shrinking. It's a complete replica of what happened in West and how they collapsed. So it should have a limited effect on the scheme of things in a publishing house. That's all I'm saying.
So do other people also think, sorry, I'm just trying to get the response to your point. Other people also think that this data can sort of kill the long tail or the backlist.
Yeah, because if there is a pressure
or
to deliver a title which shows up on the list, then the original
really
is gone. You will never publish a poetry bill.
Low volume.
Anyway, he's not tracking my books.
No, he's not. Okay.
No. So it is. That's what I've started saying that don't account only for the bestseller. I mean, there's no publisher who says 100% of their title is appearing in 250 chart or the bestseller chart. What is important is looking at your sales, manage your book or manage your product more efficiently. That should be the data aim should be. That's how you should treat the data. I mean, today if you are selling 100 books, you should always know what is went wrong. Probably it is you're not being distributed properly, it's not being priced properly, or you have not placed the book as per the right channels. So those things will come when you start looking at.
But isn't that something that actually only a big publisher like Penguin would know? At the ground level, I know why my books are not selling.
Okay.
It doesn't have, because you're directly in contact with your distributor and your retailer. To a large extent, smaller publishers are more attuned to the market. Because they have to be at ground level. So I feel, coming to what kind of clients you have in the UK, do you have any SME clients at all?
That is what, that's an illusion you have. You always say that you have everything in place. You have everything, data is coming into your system. But what about your competition? Are you know that this book is what you have pumped in, is being consumed in the market? Because there is a likelihood of lot of returns would come into your system. So what is happening therein? If that's fine, if you have printed 1,000 books and you have pushed your distributor to keep the stock of that, and in turn distributor has put it into the retail channel. But have that book been sold? What are you doing for that? So you got to think in those lines as well.
Okay. So just one question: in India, do you also collect data from offline stores? Apart from chains, like how deep does it go?
Yes, we can collect the data from all those retailers who are scanning the books. So those who are doing a manual billing, I can't track those because we don't go by that.
How many booksellers do you track?
Currently, this data is coming about 450 plus shops are coming in, and it's been increasing.
Is there a separate bestseller list for new releases, and what is it?
That you can do. I mean, that's
So do you
all.
produce one like that, or you don't?
Yeah, it is there because we also publish the data of publication. So through that you can sort it out.
I'm just going to, sorry, ma'am, I'm just going to request that you either take the mic or, because I think that affects the recording processes.
I had just noticed that the ISBN number in certain cases seems to be sort of losing its status as the unique identifier. Some of the Apple aggregators that you have to submit to get your book sold on the iPad are actually requiring that you use a unique ISBN number, different than the print version and different than the one you used on Amazon. So in many cases, we've had to end up using like 3 or 4 different ISBNs for the same title. So I'm just wondering, like, that seems scary to me in terms of data. I mean, I'm wondering how you're planning on dealing with that.
See, so you use the different ISBN number because of some purpose. Probably you're using a different ISBN number because you are putting one ISBN number for one country. So
no, because it's required by the Apple aggregators. They don't allow you to use the same one that you used for the print version.
Yeah.
And all download companies ask the same.
Okay, that's for the ebook you're talking about, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ebooks is there are multiples. Look at from the perspective of the market research. Is if you give me 12 ISBN numbers for single book, then it will have the sales figure on these 12 lines. What we are doing in the UK office is we are developing a software which can convert all these 12 ISBN number into a one single unique identifier. So you will see the consolidated sales. Yeah.
Making sure people are keeping track.
Just to,
yeah.
There's a question at the back, please.
Vikrant, you just said about Breakout Nations that it's selling whatever 20,000, some horrible number. But and that the total number could be calculated by multiplying into 3 or 4. But is that really true? I mean, are these 450 outlets or sources that you're looking at, are they equally representative of the rest of the country?
I think so. What is the best way of doing it? Let me ask this way. So what we started out doing it is rather having no data at all, we started building up the data. So we including new retailers every quarter. So every quarter you see it, we expand our panel by adding up new chunk of retailers therein. And since we don't have the universe establishment survey, which is to understand how many retailers are there in the country, and that require huge investment from the Nielsen side of it. So until unless we don't gauge the interest and we don't get to know what publisher are reading in, we can't make that investment. So over the period of time, yes, we can reach to the stage where we can extrapolate the data and give you the 100% of the market. Also, but till the time we know 35-40%, we can roughly reach to the final figure.
So can I just add to it?
Yeah. It is not. It is the shop which are scanning the books. We can track all the shops. It is as simple as that, I think.
Yeah, so just to answer your question, I think your question is bang on. The short answer is I don't think it is representative. I think the 40% is the 40%, and the 60% that is not accounted is 60%, and they're not the same. I mean, instinct tells me that it is not the same. But I think the value that we get, and I'm speaking from somebody who uses this data, increasingly we use it very strongly, is that it certainly gives us an extremely accurate picture of the 40%, as opposed to the fact that we had a inaccurate picture of 100%. So I think that's the step forward. But the short answer is I don't think it is representative. It is unlikely to be representative.
See, there were 2 books actually. I'm just expanding on what just Vaiti said. We saw the data of 2 different books. One was Chetan Bhagat, which sold about 92,000 copies, and then Breakout Nations, which sold about 21,000 copies. See, the nature of 2 books are different. In real, Breakout Nations has sold about 50,000 copies. Chetan Bhagat would have sold about 500,000 copies. But Chetan Bhagat is selling into the smaller towns where Nielsen is not there. And they are not using the scanning process, and they are selling through railway stations where Nielsen is not there. So it depends on the nature of the book. Breakout Nations is a very urban book. It sells a lot from the airports and Flipkarts, which is definitely, gets scanned through Nielsen. So that's why this difference.
So my question is that Mr. Mathur started off by saying that, the smaller books that are not booksellers, not bestsellers, etc. What you're going to do about them, etc. But at the end of this little presentation, I still don't see any value to the non-bestsellers through this process.
Yeah, because I'm not showing all my data out here.
No, even if you give me the data, what you're telling me is what's selling. You're still not telling me what's not selling, and what's not selling, how do you help that?
Yeah, that is what I have said it in my one of the slide. If you go back, what publisher would get out of that? So the book which is not selling well in the market. Yeah. So that's the best way of using the data, because you know your book
Publisher
is not.
already knows. अगर 2000 भी नहीं बिक रही हैं,
हाँ.
so आप अगर exact figure दे भी दोगे, how is that helping?
But
me?
how do you know how this 2000 is not selling in? That's what my question is.
Because if you do a first print run of 3000 and even that is not sold, it's gone.
That is what I'm asking you. How you know 3000?
No, the point he's making is, so as a publisher, and this is a problem at least we faced a lot. As a publisher, you have released a new title. Till, well, a roughly 9 month cycle, if you're lucky, you basically have no idea. So this definitely solves that. Let's say, I mean, I'll give you an example, right? I mean, we released, let's say we launch a certain series, right? Series A. Series A has, let's say, 24 books. We launched the first 6 into the stores. If this data wasn't there, till we had launched all the 24, we would have no clue. We would have launched all 24 and then started thinking, okay, what the hell is going to happen now? Now at least you launch the first 6. Within the first 6 weeks of those launches, you get some sense, okay, all right, so the next 18, you can at least plan out, okay, what print runs are we going with? Are we actually going ahead with those titles or not? You know, those questions.
But Ashish, from that, the takeaway I get as a writer is that this is actually dangerous, because if the book is not doing well, you just pull the book. You're not doing anything to help that book. You're just actually just killing the book.
That was my question earlier, that, I mean, what's the sense in the room? Does this impact the long tail? Or it
seriously damages it.
Yeah,
it sends people
helps.
into panic mode then.
No, it's not setting anybody in the panic mood. Why? I will tell you. What happens, in a publishing house, 20% of the title give you all the revenues. So the great Wimpy Kid and Breakout Nations has funded us enough to take care of small poetry books. And the vanity publishing and whatever you call it. No, that is already happening, but because our efficiency is going up. See, after the Breakout Nations sold 10,000 copies in the first week, it was the first run of the book. We got to know immediately because we saw the rate of the sale of the copies. So it happens in many cases. So we immediately printed more. So the gap, the opportunity loss that would have occurred because in absence of this data didn't come to us. So our margins are enough. It's helping in some way, and collectively it is helping in through the other ways, so that we can take care of that.
But Rahul, because you made more money on one book, you're not going to
precisely
sell the one which you don't make money, right?
That's why we also said that completely in the scheme of a publishing house, one shouldn't depend completely on this data.
1 second, can you just take the mic?
So I have.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that the printing cost itself is one fraction, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that the poetry book is put out there, the small poetry book, the fact that it exists is all right.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're selling 5 more copies or 500 more copies of Breakout Nation is not helping that small poetry book in any way.
See,
how is that helping?
It's indirect. Indirectly, what's happening? Because the retailer also is saying that only these 250 titles are selling. Then what he is doing, he's saying, give me only these 250. So that's a challenge that we are facing. Because we also publish a lot of classics, modern classics.
Can we have Vati also respond to that?
Yeah. So, my point is, I think your point is valid. This, let's take the 250, and they call it the Nielsen 250. I think the big difference between the 250 and the rest of the books is that a large part of the 250 are driven by retailers. And almost all of the rest, especially the longer tail, is driven by consumer tastes. If you look at offline retailers, and that's a problem because they're restricted by shelf space, there is no choice, right? I mean, it's a business, it has to make money. They will sell the 250. They will sell the 250 because people are apparently buying it. And I'm not saying apparently in the sense that the data is inaccurate. The data is accurate, people are buying it. But what happens is these lists on their own create a momentum. Not all of it is good. But what it does is that it's there on the list, therefore it must be good, therefore I buy, and then it continues to remain on the list, and therefore nothing else will sell. Unfortunately, for retailers like us, it is the most concerning part of our business that we sell boatloads of books that makes no money for us. And therefore, from an online retailer, we welcome people buying books that are not in the list, because at least it gives us a chance to make money. So I can tell you from our point of view, we are more than happy to sell that poetry book that you have written. All we need is access to it. But it will never happen in offline retail, simply because it is not an offline versus online part. It is a business that is driven by shelf space. And therefore, shelf space, impacts margins negatively. It's a problem. And therefore, there are two ways of selling your book in bulk volumes. One is you write a book, it ends up being a massive bestseller. Therefore, on its own, it figures its way and lands up in the 250 somehow. And then the list will make sure that you remain there. Because all of us will say, this seems to be a wonderful book. Or even if it's not a wonderful book, people are buying it. So we have seen some examples there, right? And therefore, we'll keep selling it, right? The other option is for you to figure out how to reach out to people outside the 250 and still sell your books. I'm not giving you a solution, but I can tell you that the data certainly is accurate, but it is not all good for people like you.
Can I also make a suggestion that I think that the data would be very useful if instead of a straight out collecting data on what people are buying, if your data was more focused on why people are not buying what they are not buying.
You can have a study for that.
I mean, that would be really useful.
You can have the study for that as well.
All right. I'm just in the interest of just 1 second. I have one thought. Are there any retailers in the room? There are some, but who all are retailers?
Well, I'm a retailer.
Yeah, I mean, somebody who has not had their say.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I would love to sort of get thoughts from some of the other retailers in the room. Do they have any woes, or are they sort of happy and things are all fantastic? I hope they are.
Happy with Nielsen data or with
Penguin? No, generally life, selling books. I mean, right. It's more and more not the Nielsen question. It's
no, but
sort
she's
of
right.
Booksellers' woes question.
When a book is not selling, are they using that data creatively to find out why that book is not selling and what can be done about it?
Would love your suggestions on that.
No, I don't have suggestions. The publisher has to have that suggestion.
Okay, publisher.
It's a little bit about Annie's question. So, I think BookScan data is sometimes useful to see. Not children's doesn't have that many bestsellers. Anyway, like we have had one book in the top 50, but that was a reference book. So if you're looking at fiction, you can actually track books that are steady sellers. I mean, the ones that have tanked, there's probably not much that you can do about, but you can actually see where the book is going week by week, and you can see that a book is selling steadily, and that really helps because you can actually pump in. You know that if you put in more of this book into the market, it will probably take off. And we've actually done that with one of the series that we had recently. And it really helped me because I could see that there are, 30 to 50 copies selling every week, and it's going good. It's not dropping. It's not going up, but it's not dropping. So, from a 3,000 print run book, we had like 2 reprints after that, only because I could see where it was going. And that really helped, maybe for the mid list rather than the top sellers or the really tanked ones. I think it was quite useful for me as a publisher to. I may not have done it had I not known, because like Ashish very rightly said, you don't know what's happening to the book for like 9 months or until the returns start to come. So it's useful for the list that's in between as well,
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I share something?
Please. There's a question in the back.
No, not a question, just a comment. Annie, as an editor, I actually find the Nielsen list really useful because when I'm looking at the books which are selling, okay, I'm never going to publish Chetan Bhagat, but in a way you can also study the way that the book has been marketed. What are the talking points? What is the quote on the back? So it allows me to look at books which are working well and seeing what elements of that I can replicate in books which I really like, which I'm publishing. And so in that sense, I find it really, really useful.
Yeah. At the front. How are you doing on time?
Thanks.
for good or bad, we invested in a point of sale inventory management system in 1992 when we set up Crossword. So probably one of the very early ones, right? So we had data from day one on what was selling, what was not, by volume, by value, by category, by everything, right? So we started the Crossword bestsellers and all that, did really well. But we noticed one thing, that 8 to 10% of our sales used to come from the top 20 books, right? And it was fairly steady by volume, by value. It was at that 8 to 10. But we realized that there were a set of customers